My name is Maria Juarez, and you're listening to In This Casa. Bienvenidos. In this podcast, I aim to memorialize and honor my husband David's memory by exploring conversations about life and what it's like in my casa, and hopefully in other casas as well. Welcome back to In This Casa, and thank you for joining me. In this episode, I'd like to talk about my husband David's belongings and our home. This is a really difficult conversation to have, and a really difficult aspect of my life that I'm dealing with at the moment. It's now been 6 months since David died, and I don't like my home. And that's not fair because we loved our house. We loved our home. David and I found this house together. We had been house hunting for a year. We couldn't find the right house. We had stopped looking because it was too stressful and it was the holidays and it had been a year. And one Sunday afternoon, or maybe it was in the morning, but it was a Sunday, it was gloomy. We grabbed coffee and we went for a drive because that's what we always did, was go for drives together. And I had still kind of been looking at listings even though we weren't house hunting anymore, and I knew this one was listed. And so I asked what he thought about us just driving past it, and we did. And when we parked out front, we were both like, yeah, we need to look at that one. And getting into this house has changed so many aspects of our lives and our family's lives, and we loved our home. But I don't love my home without my husband. And that's not fair to my husband, and I don't think he would want that for me either. He told me in July, one day when we were in the pool, that he loved our home, he loved our house, and that he was content with it. And if he left this world, he loved it and he felt accomplished. He loved his home, he loved his life. And he asked me if I didn't feel the same, and I said, yeah. We were floating in the pool. And when he asked me, I looked up at the house and I said, yeah, I love our home, but we're not done yet. It's not our forever home. Don't go anywhere. We're not done. So I'm struggling to love it without him. I'm in a weird place where I don't want to get rid of anything or change anything because it feels like forgetting him or letting go of him, which I can't even fathom doing. But at the same time, everything in the house reminds me of him and of our life, and I'm so completely miserable to have lost it. So it's like I'm voluntarily creating this tomb for myself that I'm both happy and completely miserable in. So recently I decided I needed to force myself to do something about it. That I needed to push myself into an uncomfortable space so that I can continue to move forward. Not that I'm not moving forward, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm not, and I'm completely unwilling to, and I'm just living life and going through the motions because I have to. It sounds unfair to say, but I have no happiness and no joy in my life, which sounds so completely unfair to say because I have my girls and I have my mom and my sister and my nephews and my brother-in-laws, not just my sister, my sisters, my brother, my dad. And I have a lot. I have a lot. And they love me and I love them. And my sister and I even had this conversation a few months ago about how I have no joy. And, I can understand her reaction to me. What she said was, she was crying and she said, well, you bring us joy and we love you. And I can understand her reaction and taking it personally. We were having a conversation and they love me and they're a part of my life. They're supporting me. And I just told her that nothing brings me joy. And I explained to her that I don't mean it personally, that any of them do not bring me joy. And I explained that I have no joy in my life right now, and very, very, very little happiness. I have moments of happiness here and there, and moments of joy, but the majority of my hours, waking and non-waking, are joyless. I'm even plagued with nightmares and the inability to sleep. So what I explained to her was, it's not that I find no joy in them. I love them all very much. And while I am currently still alive in Earthside, they are my reason now. They are the only reason my girls, my mom, my dad, my siblings, my nephews, my family, they're the only reason that I continue right now. So even though I don't have joy, they're my reason. I started this episode wanting to talk about our home and our belongings, but now that I'm kind of going down the path of why I'm talking about our belongings and home, I think I'm also going to mention that in the early days of losing David, maybe the first couple of weeks, maybe the third week, I woke up one morning, and I think that for those weeks, I know that I wasn't eating because everybody kept trying to feed me and I wouldn't eat, and everybody kept trying to very, very carefully offer me a meal and serve me and ask me to eat a little bit. And I would maybe take a few bites and be done. But I was still getting up and, doing what I needed to do in regards to David's arrangements and figuring out how I was going to continue to handle life without him and what needed to be done paperwork wise and account wise and stuff like that. And with Sarah and Mia. So I was still moving, but I wasn't eating and I wasn't sleeping well. And I was crying all the time. And my heart was so broken that sometime during that third week, I woke up in our bed and I could feel my heart giving out. I could feel my heart. I had for a few days had already had this pain in my chest, but I just thought it was like, physical manifestations of the emotion I was feeling, and it was. But on this particular morning, I woke up and the way that my chest hurt and the way that my heart was beating, I knew that if I didn't find a reason to change something, that I was going to die of a broken heart and go with my husband. And although I wanted to die of a broken heart and go with my husband, I can't do that because I have to stay and take care of our girls. And my family needs me. So that day I got up and I showered and I ate a little more food that day and made an effort to start making decisions to will myself to not die so that I could go on for my family because I love them and because they were now my reason, even though I didn't have any joy. So I explained that to my sister. And so I don't find joy in my home, which, like I said, is not fair to the hard work that my husband and I put in the life that we built together. So, David's belongings. Those first few weeks, no, not even just weeks, months, I didn't do anything with David's belongings. So much so, and I still haven't done a lot with David's belongings, but so much so that David and I had a bench at the end of our bed, and he had clothes that were folded on the corner of the bench on his side of the bed. He always had like his work pants that he had worn that day, and then he had taken off and gotten, when he got home, put shorts on. Like his work pants with his badge were always there. It was summertime, so maybe his swim trunks, like clean ones that he intended to put on, would be there on his side of the bench. Or the tank he was wearing that day the day before he'd gotten to bed or whatever. But there was always a few articles of his clothes folded and on that corner of that bench. So that day of his accident, he had a little pile of folded clothes on the bench. And I didn't touch it for 6 months. I couldn't move them. I couldn't bring myself to move them. I didn't touch anything of his in our room for 6 months. The only things that I did was David and I had licenses to carry before you no longer needed a license to carry, and we have firearms. And we have a gun safe. But David didn't keep all the guns in the gun safe. But I needed to put the majority of the guns in the gun safe. So his closet was uncharacteristically a little messy. So Sara and she helped me. I went and got some totes, and I put his shoes. David had tons of duffel bags and backpacks and things like that. So I put his shoes and all of his bags and totes in his closet to kind of house them neatly and more efficiently so that I could have a clear walkway and I could put up all the firearms. So that was the first thing that I did do with his belongings, probably within the first month of him passing away. And then I didn't do anything for a long time. Maybe a month or two later, I did sell David's car. But I didn't just sell his car. I sold his car and I sold Sarah's car. I sold his car. I understand that some people can put cars in a garage and look at them for years and years and years and have a sentimental attachment to them. And, I think that's wonderful for people who can do it. But for me, it was just going to break my heart to see his Porsche sitting there. So I sold it, and I sold Sara's car, and I got Sara a new car that I could take to California for her, and I could feel comfortable about her driving it halfway across the country where I'm just managing her in college without her dad. And those are the only things I touched of his for 6 months. I wear his wedding ring every day, and he has a bracelet that he wore that I wear every day as well. The girls wanted his earrings that he had been wearing pretty consistently last year, but he was wearing them the day that he had his accident, and when he made it to the medical examiner, he didn't have them on, so they were not recovered for whatever reason. But everything else of David's, I haven't moved until now, until 6 months later, because I have to force myself to do something so I don't get stuck in my grief. So I took his clothes off the bench, and the girls and I discussed his items and what we want to do with them. And I started to do what we've decided to do. So, for instance, in the bathroom, David had really nice toiletries, really expensive products. And so I collected them from the bathroom and I took them to his nephews so that they can get used. Because they're expensive and they're, good products, and I just, I can't just throw things away. So, we took those to them with the exception of his colognes. We kept all his colognes, for us so that we can smell them whenever we feel like we need to be close to David. And all of his belongings, with the exception of things that are in the garage, will end up in his closet, and his closet will remain his closet. So, we have a plan to organize his items, his belongings, in a way that everything will be nicely stored in his closet and protected. Until down the road, the girls and I are in a space where we maybe will donate them. I don't know. But right now, it's just not something that we can do. So I am working to just organize his closet in the way that we've discussed, and do things like, of which I haven't done yet, but I intend to, which is like move his clothes out of our dresser and store them in his closet. And then I'll just use the entirety of the dresser. So I'm reorganizing things in the house. And I got rid of a couple of pieces of furniture. Namely, I got rid of our bed. David and I had a king-size bed, and I was just miserable every night in that huge bed without him. So I gave our bed to a young family member who is starting his life with his partner, and they could use a little bit of a helping hand, and David would have loved that that's where it went. So I gave them our bed, and I got something just for me, which is a perfectly nice bed, but I hate it. It's perfectly comfortable, it's nice, but I hate that it's just mine. I hate my new normal, but I am trying to accept it. So, for any of my loved ones who are listening or watching, the next time you come over, if things are a little different, it's just because I'm trying to figure out how to move forward. And not move forward without my husband, but just try to move forward without getting comfortable and complacent in his memory and in our relationship and in my grief and not moving, because he would want me to move forward and to kick ass. He would want me to be who I was the morning of August 12th and all the days before. And I'm not that person right now, but I'm trying to be. And if you could see beyond this camera, or see beyond whatever device you're listening on, oh, my house is a wreck right now. I have torn it up trying to figure out how to reorganize things so that way it feels more like my house, which I reluctantly am trying to accept. But I know that it has to feel in a way that I like it so that I will continue to maintain it and not just be miserable while doing. So today I'm focused on getting everything that I have put into chaos, trying to reorganize in my house, reorganize and put up somewhere so that my house can be clean tomorrow and can hopefully feel different. And so that this weekend I can work on reorganizing David's garage in a way that I can easily get to things and know where things are and feel comfortable in utilizing the garage to maintain our home. So I'm working on it. I hate it, but I'm working on it. And I'm also going to work on trying not to say those things to myself. Even not out loud, just in my head. I think about how miserable I am. I think about how I hate my new normal. And, that's so powerful just to be even thinking those things to myself. But I'm so torn because I feel like if I stop saying those things to myself, then it's going to be like I am not grieving him, or I'm not sad because he's gone. And that's just, my own guilt and wanting to make sure he knows that I love him and that I don't want to do this life without him. But I do have to stop saying those things to myself. But that doesn't mean I'm not grieving him. It doesn't mean I won't always grieve him, because I am and I will. But I know the power of words, and I just have to stop saying it to myself. So that's the update on David's belongings and our home, what's currently going on with them. So for now, I'll just continue to push myself every day to move forward, doing what the girls and I have decided will be done with the rest of David's belongings. I will continue to push myself to make the changes that I have decided on for our home, which, by the way, are all things that David and I had planned on doing anyway, but I'm just executing them on my own now to make the house be a little bit different. But they are things that him and I had already agreed upon and decided on beforehand. So I'll continue to do those things. I'm going to clean out his garage and reorganize it so that it's usable for me. And I'm going to work on the exterior of my house and work on continuing to maintain it on my own and try to learn how to love it again, because my husband would want me to. So I'll keep you guys updated on where I stand with that in a few months. But in the meantime, you can join me here next Saturday and we can continue to talk about what it's like in my casa. And if you want to talk about what it's like in your casa with me, send me an email. I'll talk to you soon.